All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Have you ever been handed this just massive, messy, totally chaotic list of ideas and been told to somehow magically build working software out of it? Honestly, it can be incredibly daunting. But today, we are taking a raw concept, a completely unstructured idea for a simple reminder app, and we're going to walk through exactly how to build it using the Scrum framework. We're going to transform all that chaos into a truly functional product, step by step. And that really brings us to the ultimate question. You've got stakeholders demanding features yesterday, and a clock that is just relentlessly ticking down. So how do you turn that initial chaos into a working reminder app in just 2 weeks? Solving this exact, highly stressful challenge is what we're going to focus on today as we build out our case study. So to conquer that challenge, we use Scrum. By definition, Scrum is an agile framework for managing complex software project work empirically. And look, the foundation of literally everything we're going to talk about today is the 3-3-5 model. Whenever you think of Scrum from now on, I want you to remember this anchor. It consists of 3 roles, 3 artifacts, and 5 events. Honestly, if you master these, you master the entire framework. Now, one absolutely crucial thing to understand is that Scrum isn't a traditional, straight-line march from start to finish. You don't just plan once and then build blindly for months. It's an empirical, continuous loop. As you'll see, it's a relentless cycle of planning, implementation, and review. This means we are constantly learning by doing, we're evaluating the real-world results of our reminder app, and then adapting our approach as we go. Okay, let's look at the starting point for our reminder app. The initial requirements we're handed are things like set reminders with time and a message, app notifications, view an upcoming list, no graphical user interface, and local file storage. Guys, it's essentially a vague wish list scribbled on a cocktail napkin. There is absolutely no structure, no priority, and no clear definition of who this app is even for. It is absolute chaos. And we absolutely cannot code from vague ideas. A vague requirement, something like the system should have a dashboard, is just a recipe for disaster and gets a massive thumbs down. To get a green light in Scrum, we have to translate those vague ideas into standard user stories. A proper user story relies on a really specific format that nails down 3 critical components: the role or actor, the goal they want to achieve, and the benefit or value of actually doing it. To see this in practice, here is a specific user story pulled directly from a reminder app case study. As a normal user, I need to log in so that I can access the application backend. Notice how powerful that is. It captures exactly who needs something, exactly what they need, and exactly why it matters. This level of clarity immediately drives development, simply because there is zero ambiguity about what the software actually needs to do. This clarity brings us perfectly to the human element, starting with the first of our 3 roles, the product owner. They are literally the voice of the customer. For our reminder app, they're the ones making the hard calls, like deciding if local file storage is actually more important than push notifications. They refine those user stories, and they set the overall product roadmap. Simply put, they are the ultimate decision maker. Next up is the Scrum Master. And hey, despite the somewhat intimidating title, they aren't a Scrum Lord or some sort of superhero. They are a servant leader. If a developer's environment completely crashes while they're coding the notification logic for our app, the Scrum Master is the one who knocks down that obstacle. They facilitate the daily process and act as a hands-on teacher to ensure the team is actually following the Scrum framework correctly. The final role is the development team itself. And here's the kicker. There are no individual titles here. No senior UI architects or junior notification engineers, just a single cross-functional unit. They're the actual engine building the reminder app, and they are mutually accountable for delivering working code at the very end of each cycle. All right, so with our 3 roles established, we move to our first artifact, the product backlog. You can think of this as the master wish list for the whole reminder app. It's a dynamically prioritized list of all those user stories we just talked about. The login service, the forgot password feature, setting reminders, push notifications, the whole shebang. Everything the product might ever possibly need lives right here. But obviously, we can't build that entire master list all at once, right? So the team evaluates the product backlog and pulls only the top priority items, say just the core notification engine, directly into Artifact 2, the sprint backlog. This smaller, highly focused list becomes the team's absolute, non-negotiable to-do list for their current working cycle. Now, to actually execute that specific to-do list and build out our login and notification features, the team is going to cycle through 5 essential events: sprint planning, the daily scrum, the sprint execution itself, the sprint review, and finally, the sprint retrospective. Let's walk through exactly how these events function in the real world. It all kicks off with sprint planning, and it's actually highly strategic. The data shows that a team should actively forecast and pull in between 85 to 115% of their capacity for a sprint cycle. They aren't just guessing or throwing darts at a board. They're calculating exactly what they can realistically handle to build this app successfully. Once the sprint actually starts, the team holds the daily Scrum, which is a strict 15-minute time-boxed stand-up. Imagine the team physically moving a sticky note for local file storage from the to-do column over to in process, then to verify, and finally into done. It's a meticulous daily tracking of their exact progress. But how do we actually know if we'll finish the app on time? Well, we use a burndown chart. This plots effort points directly against time. So as days pass on the bottom axis, the effort remaining line burns down. It clearly visualizes the team's velocity and immediately flags us if we are starting to fall behind our goals. It's totally data-driven. When the sprint concludes, we arrive at our third and final artifact, the product increment. This is the actual working piece of the reminder app that we just built. We immediately take this into the sprint review event, where the team demonstrates these realized outcomes directly to the stakeholders and customers. Why? To obtain immediate empirical feedback on what we actually built. However, we can't just show off any random piece of code. This increment is only acceptable if it meets the shared, agreed-upon definition of done. And done doesn't just mean a developer hit save on their laptop. For our app, it means the code is reviewed, integration is fully tested, documentation is updated, and the user can actually log in without the whole app crashing. That baseline checklist absolutely must be cleared. Finally, wrapping it all up, the team holds a 45-minute sprint retrospective. They literally close the doors, no stakeholders allowed, and ask the tough questions. Did we severely underestimate how hard those push notifications would be? They analyze what went well, what completely failed, and formulate corrective measures so they can adapt and improve before the very next cycle begins. So what happens when our simple little reminder app scales into a massive enterprise-level system? Well, we scaled the framework itself. We use a nested team structure called a Scrum of Scrums. Multiple parallel feature teams coordinate through this nested hierarchy to maintain that agile speed across dozens or even hundreds of developers. And to support that massive scale without losing our speed, these nested teams rely heavily on automated CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, and continuous deployment. This means that as soon as developers commit code, it automatically triggers builds and tests, deploying seamlessly to production just as nimbly as our single reminder app team did. So, we've taken a chaotic wish list, applied the 3-3-5 model, and actually delivered verified working software. But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a somewhat provocative question to consider regarding your own daily work. Is your team truly agile, relying on this strict data-driven empirical model, or are you just doing daily stand-ups and kind of hoping for the best? Take a hard look at your process. Keep learning, keep adapting, and we'll see you in the next explainer.